The college football experience, Missouri Tigers 2024 season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with the new Pick 8. Sign up today with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. And yes, they do have college football when the season comes around. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your free 7-day trial period by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
This is Mike Leach, head football coach at Mississippi State, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Missouri Tigers 2024 season preview. What a time it is to be a Miz fan, right? Mizzou. What do they say? Mizzou. I don't know, but it's a great time to be a Missouri Tiger fan, as many think they are a true playoff contender and potentially one to host a playoff game in Columbia, Missouri. Can you imagine a state that's been deprived of their St. Louis Rams team? They're loving the Battle Hawk action, but now you could potentially host a playoff game with the Missouri Tigers. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about the offense, defense, special teams, transfer portal. We're going to go through, thoughts on the schedule game by game. Folks, hop on over youtube.com/the college experience. You can watch this, hit that like and subscribe button as we're breaking down all 134 college football teams like we do each and every year with a solo podcast for every single team in the land. But this year's a little different with 134. Kennesaw State coming up to the FBS. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Kobe Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
Nobody knows nothing. Somebody knows. Double the price. But no one touches Dundee.
Oh, yes. I mean, the days of Kellen Winslow coming back. They got Dan Devine used to be there, I think. I don't know. Gary Barnett. I am joined by my co-host, and it's someone that I've, we've got to do the Missouri Tiger preview for many years, specifically Missouri. I know a lot of times it's a rotating chair, but give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, the free lock giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. How you doing? A lot of excitement around Missouri, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Coming off an 11-2 season. It's 12 expanding to 12-team playoff. You gotta think Missouri is sitting there saying, "Wait, you got the NIL." I think they're ahead of things in the NIL. They were able to get, Luther Burden. I think a lot of that had to do with the NIL. I know we'll be talking about him, but they also have a 5-star freshman coming in the defensive line or defensive end spot. And that's, you could argue that even during Gary Pinkel's success, they weren't able to really do a lot of that. But it's a new day and age in college football, as you're seeing with a 12-team playoff, and every team should be able to take advantage of it. I think every team, in my opinion, should be trying to get government involved with their. I know that sounds crazy, but I was thinking about, in general, some of these teams like if you're not in the SEC or Big Ten, why would you not try to get government involved to try to get a little kickback from the?
I think that law has helped out Missouri, so sure.
You just saw Florida do it too with the high school recruits
Right.
too. We're talking about.
There's a blueprint now.
There is a blueprint. We'll see how many teams follow suit, but 11-2. Let's talk. Let's just jump in on this. Coach Eli Drinkwitz, who you knew from, obviously you're an App State football fan. He spent 1 year there and it was 12-1.
I knew him before that when he was a coordinator at NC State, right up the road from you as well.
Yes. And here's the thing. He's 28-21, but 17-17 against SEC teams. Now, the reason why I bring that up is there's no more SEC East. Some would say you might have been able to pad your stats going 17-17 in the SEC by playing Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky, even Florida's been down of late. But what do you think?
At the same time, there's no more Georgia on your schedule this year, and I feel like for Missouri to ever try to get to an SEC championship game or a playoff, previously they had to, topple Georgia. And let's face it, Georgia's been the best school in the nation over the last 3 years. So there's a mixed bag with that. But usually you would think that no more SEC East and maybe your schedule gets harder, but that's not really the case for Missouri this year. I think Missouri is one of the teams like maybe Ole Miss or maybe like Penn State or something where the expanded playoff now really gives them a chance because they probably aren't the best team in the SEC or a top 2 team or maybe even a top 3 team in the SEC. But the SEC might get 4 teams in, and that gives them a chance to maybe be the 3rd or the 4th team in the SEC, especially with the schedule, especially with a lot of their returning production. I mean, that's why everybody is so excited around the Missouri program. Now, I think this year they do kind of have more of a target on their back. You mentioned they went 11-2, beat Ohio State in the bowl game. Don't get too crazy over that.
Yeah, well, Ohio State. I mean, look, I liked seeing Missouri beat Ohio State in that game, but at the same time, Ohio State didn't have like their whole roster.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying, maybe the average college football fan doesn't realize that, and maybe that's why a lot of people are high on Missouri because they did beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. That game means absolutely nothing. Completely agree. But I'm just saying, why some expectations are high and why they might have more of a target on their back than they did previously.
Well, here's the question I want to ask you: is Eli Drinkwitz with being 28-21 and 4-0 in 1-score games a year ago? I don't know if that's sustainable. First off, 4-0 in 1-score games. That normally doesn't happen year in, year out. But if they were to regress this year, does it put them back on the hot seat? Because we made the case a couple years ago, I think it was last season, that it was on the hot seat. And he shut us up with a great year. But at the same time, like you're 0-4 against Georgia, you're 1-3 against Tennessee. You have a winning record against the shitty teams in the SEC, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. You do have losses to Boston College, Wake, and Army on your resume. So it was almost Middle Tennessee last year too, by the way.
Well, I think we do have to admit that maybe we were kind of wrong last year and the year before that, because what we were hearing from Missouri fans was that he's bringing in more talent than what's been there for a long time, and you have to be patient with him. And sure enough, that resulted in a double-digit win season last
100%, 100%. But
we were definitely saying that he was on the hot seat. Should he move on? And we were saying this because of he had his first job ever coaching was at App State, head coaching. And he had a very good season, but that was
but he also took over a Cadillac.
That was mostly with Satterfield's team. So there were some big question marks going into year 3 and year 4, but it certainly looks like Drinkwitz has answered a lot of those issues. But no, I think whenever you're in the SEC and whenever expectations are high, if you fail to meet them, then the seat starts warming up. And let's not act like he's had a ton of success. He's had one good year last year, but everything is kind of culminating to this season here, and they have a good chance.
Well, that's why I ask you if let's say they go 7-5 and they have all this expectations. Now I think 7-5 is going to be hard to do on the schedule because it's a nice. The schedule sets up great for them, but it's possible when you look back and say, man, that they really they won. They made a 64-yard field goal or something to beat Kansas State. 7-point game against Memphis, 4-point game against Middle Tennessee, 2-point game against Florida. Like that, you could argue that they could easily be. I mean, last year that's like I said, that's 4 1-score games right there. If they go 1-3 in those, and you take out the bowl game against Ohio State where Ohio State's whole team didn't play, then you're sitting there saying, they'd be what 7-5. You know what I mean? So.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's very valid. They did not play at a high level consistently all year long, especially in the early of the season. That's when a lot of those close games came, other than the Florida one. But on the flip side is that other than Alabama, they've played Georgia tougher than anybody for the last couple of years. Last year, they went into Kentucky, pretty good Kentucky team. They won by 17 on the road. They beat Tennessee at home by 29.
He needed that, though. That was his first win against Tennessee. That was his first win against Tennessee.
And to finish the regular season, they went into Fayetteville and beat Arkansas 48-14. So there were, 3 or 4 really impressive wins, some close calls that should not have been anywhere near that close. So this year, they do need more consistent effort throughout the whole year, especially, don't play down to the worst teams.
Yeah, and shout out to the chat. I see Casey Hightower said Midwest deserves all the sports. We don't have anything else. Leg Show Magazine. Shout out to Leg Show Magazine. He's saying after the basketball season they had, they probably can't wait for football to start. Courtney Joe, 3 more months till football. I miss you too, Courtney Joe. Let's go. And Joe Vargas. Everybody in the chat. Once again, folks, if you're listening to this on the audio side, you can watch this show. I got graphics and everything. YouTube.com/. The college experience. So check it out. College football experience. We're going team by team, starting with the SEC this year. It's a little different than years past. We would just go alphabetically. We're going SEC first, Mountain West will be second, and then followed by the Big Ten. I just posed those questions. I'm playing devil's advocate. Obviously you had a great year last year, but I do wonder with now you have expectations. It's a little different when you have gigantic expectations.
I think it's very fair to bring up those close games last year. For sure. Especially when you look at it and say, they only had 9 turnovers on the entire season, which was 6th best in the country. Turnovers can be kind of fluky. So, especially if you're not a top 10 team in turnovers, then maybe you do lose some of those close games for sure.
Yeah. Let's jump into it because they did lose. And I think this is something we should talk about. Defense coordinator Blake Baker was hired away by LSU. That's a big loss. Blake Baker was on Jeff Tedford's staff at Fresno State. He was hired away. When you think about that Tedford staff, by the way, Kalen DeBauer at OC, Blake Baker at DC. I mean, Jeff Tedford. Maybe we pay attention to that guy. Maybe we pay attention to his hires. But he is now a defense coordinator hired away in conference LSU. And LSU's got the big bag of cash. Missouri's building that, but LSU just offers a shit ton of money. You got to take it. Blake Baker leaves for LSU. Corey Batoon is the new defensive coordinator. Their OC is Kirby Moore. Running back Cody Schrader, who ran for over 1,600 yards a season ago, gone. And then these are some of the big hits to me is the defensive side of the ball. Not only losing the coordinator, Darius Robinson, who I think had over 6 sacks a season ago, goes to the NFL. Ennis Rakestraw at the cornerback spot, NFL. Linebacker Tyron Hopper, NFL. Javon Foster, NFL. He's an offensive tackle. Cornerback Chris Adams Drain. He's off to the NFL. Safety Jalen Carley's is off to the NFL. And then this one's huge to me. You're 4-0 in close games. You got this awesome kicker, Harrison Mevis. He's off to the NFL as well. And they lost some other guys too. I mean, just that I think are potentially pending NFL contracts as free agents. And that's defensive lineman Niles Gaddy, Raylis George, Jaden Jernigan, Josh Landry, all on the D line, and the linebacking core, Chad Bailey, Ben Stratman. But running back Nathaniel Pete, who also gave them some depth also. and a couple other guys on the offensive line, Marcellus Johnson and Xavier Delgado. That's a lot to lose, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense, you look at the offense, and we're going to dive into that, but the defense is the big question mark for me this year.
Yeah, on offense, they bring back 82% of their production, which is 10th best in the nation. On defense, only 61% of their production. Overall, though, 17th in the nation returning production, and second in the SEC, only behind Kentucky. But look, I mean, it's a good problem to have because Missouri just had 7 guys drafted, including Robinson, who was a first rounder. That proves that Drinkwitz is improving the talent there. Because I don't think Missouri's ever had this many players drafted in 1 year in the NFL draft. But there are a lot. That does mean that there's a lot of holes to fill. And I think they successfully utilized the portal to fill a lot of them on defense. But you never know exactly how that's going to work out. So I think offensively they're going to be fine. I think, obviously Cody Schrader was a great running back for them. But they got guys that they can plug in now. I think they'll be fine there. But you're right. Defense, losing that kind of talent, that kind of production, and the defensive coordinator could be a concern.
Yeah, I think that's what you're most worried about. I'm not worried about the running back spot at all. No. If anything, I think you could make the case they got better at running back if you we'll get into it. But the offense a year ago, 28th in scoring per game, 32.5 points per game, 6th best in the SEC. For yards, they were 28th in the nation, 434.3 yards per game, 5th best in the SEC, and in passing, 37th in passing, 262.3 yards per game. That also charts at 6th best in the SEC, and then rushing, 48th in rushing in the nation, 172 yards per game, 6th best in the SEC. I mean, do any of those things stand out? I mean, I guess to me, you're bringing back majority of that offense that was it was in the top half. There was 14 teams in the SEC last year. So it was one of the better offenses in the SEC.
And therefore definition. I would expect it to improve and go up and probably be a top 3 or 4 offense in the SEC.
Yes. Now I'll say this, the transfer portal, you can't just lose Jake Garcia and expect to be just, there
goes their season.
Yep. He heads out to East Carolina. Smart decision, if I may say so. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a Missouri podcast. But Jake Garcia leaves. Also, Jabari Johnson, quarterback, heads out to Oregon State. Running back Michael Cox in the portal. Wide receiver Dennis Jackson heads out to Southern Miss. Chase Lupa hits the portal. Demarion Houston also hit the portal. Tight end Max Wisner heads out to the Zips of Akron. Tight end Ryan Horstkamp, great name, heads out to Middle Tennessee. Offensive lineman EJ Ndama Ugar heads out to Arkansas State. Val Erickson heading to NC State. And offensive tackle Makai Lee heads to North Texas. So you look at that and you only see, to me, 2 real jumps up. And that is Jake Garcia to ECU. And you could argue Val Erickson to NC State.
No, I think Missouri crushed it in the portal this year. They lost some depth like most SEC teams do because, players realize that they can't hack it at the SEC level. They're not going to see the field. So they transferred down. And I think that's what you have here in most of these cases.
Now, what they added, Jake Garcia leaves. Drew Pine coming in. I'm sorry, Garcia. I'll take Garcia over Pine.
All right. Goes well. These backup quarterbacks won't see the field either.
True, but Drew Pine, former Notre Dame quarterback in Arizona. He was at Arizona State and Tempe last year. The running back room. Wow. I love both these kids. If you watch Sunbelt football, Nate Noel at App State's a stud. I think Drinkwitz had a connection to his App State days there. And then Marcus Carroll, who I think is a stud also at Georgia State. Love both those gets.
Dude, you got thunder and lightning here now. I mean, Nate Noel had over 3,000 rushing yards at App State. Last year, Carroll goes for over 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns at Georgia State. I mean, those guys are going to fit. They're going to pair well nicely. I think they're going to share the rock. I think they're going to be just fine at running back, even with Schrader leaving.
Yeah, agreed. Then they went out and got some offensive line help. That Caden Green from Oklahoma, Marcus Bryant from SMU. Look, these are huge gets for them. Like I said, Pine's the only one that I think is for sure a backup. They lost their offensive tackle from a year ago, starting offensive tackle. So we're gonna see in camp how that goes. But you got to think, despite what the list is longer on what went out, but that normally happens on your best teams in the SEC. I think they did a great job on the offense.
Yeah, if you look at the O-line, they bring back 3 returning starters. We talked about all the draft picks. Only one was on the offensive side of the ball. That was their tackle, who's now gone. But Green and Bryant are slated to step right in and start. So again, I think they sliced up the transfer portal with some good precision here, filling needs big time.
Now let's talk about what returns, because Brady Cook, I actually think this is the one. He took a big step last year, 21 touchdowns. I think it was only 6 interceptions. If they really want to be elite, to me, he's got to take one more step.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the fascinating thing. But the receiving core, they bring back their top 3 wideouts and their starting tight end from a year ago. So Luther Burden III, who will be a first-round draft pick. If you haven't watched him, he jumps off screen and he's way better than everybody on the field. So Luther Burden III had over 1,200 yards receiving last year. Theo Wease, the former Oklahoma Sooner, very good as well, 682 yards. Mookie Cooper back as well, and I think could be even better this year. He was 3rd on the team in receptions and yards at 447 yards. Tight end Brett Norfleet, 18 receptions a year ago. He's back, and as NC Nick just alluded to, the offensive line, you bring back Cameron Johnson at the left guard spot. You bring back Connor Tullison, and you bring back right tackle Armand Mabu. I mean, the skill position players, when you add in those running back transfers, I almost think all the pressure's on Brady Cook, because you look at the wideouts, you're like, they have one of the best receiving rooms in the country, I think. You look at the running back room, you're like, hey, I'm buying into having both these running backs. Can Brady Cook be the guy? Can he take his game to the next, a tier up?
For sure. And this will be his 5th year in Columbia. This will be his 3rd year as the main starter. From 2022 to 2023, we saw his completion percentage go up. We saw his total passing yards go up, his passing yards per play, his touchdowns went up, and his interceptions went down. So I think he's gotten to the tier where he's like a pretty good starting quarterback in college football. But you're right. If he can make the next jump up and be, one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the SEC, then Missouri could be extremely good offensively.
I'll just say it right here, 30 touchdowns. That's that next tier up. 30 touchdowns. The schedule's light. We know it's light. All right. Well, look, defensively, like I said, the bigger question here, Corey Batoon taking over for Blake Baker, 25th in the nation in scoring defense per game. They only gave up 20.8 points per game. That was 6th best in the SEC. They were 33rd in the country in yards, only gave up 336.1 yards per game. That was 4th best in the SEC. Pass defense, 47th in the nation, 213.2 yards per game. That's charted for 8th best in the SEC. That was their weak spot. 30th in the nation in rush defense, 122.8 yards per game, 6th best in the SEC. Look, to me, like, if you're top 35, you're top 30 in scoring, top 35 in yards per game, top 30 in rush defense. Okay, pass defense was a little bit of the weakness, but 47, top 50, pretty damn good defense last year.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's why 6 of them or 5 of them got drafted. So, but as we already mentioned, good defense last year. Can they do it again? Maybe if they take a step back, but the offense takes a step up, maybe it's a wash.
Well, I can tell you they lost these guys in the portal. Defensive lineman DJ Wesselak to Oregon State. The Beavs grabbed 2 guys from them. Defensive lineman Kai Montgomery to Patty C's Ball State. Defensive end Sergey Tunkara to Cal. And then linebacker Damian Wilson to ECU. Now we're talking. Let's go, Pirates. Also linebacker Carmichael Glass to Louisiana Lafayette. Linebacker Xavier Simmons to Charlotte. I know Charlotte's really happy about that get. Defensive back Tyler Hibbler is also in the portal, and punter Daniel Hull heads out to Eastern Michigan. So we know Cal, East Carolina, Charlotte hit humdingers there, but no. Okay. Kind of similar to the offensive side of the ball in a way, you would say.
I think that's one of the most impressive things is that they're really not losing anybody big in the portal. And I guess if you're on the Missouri defense and you just saw so many of your guys get drafted last year, why would you leave? Obviously it appears there's a clear path to the NFL, and they're probably excited about this year and the potential to maybe make the playoffs or something. So overall, Missouri did not lose much in the portal at all, other than depth.
Well, they were very aggressive in the portal too. So getting some of these guys, they went out on the defensive side of the ball and brought in Eddie Kelly from Georgia Tech, Sterling Webb from New Mexico State, won 11 games, beat Auburn last year. Defensive end Darius Smith though from Georgia. That's a one you circle anytime you can get a Georgia defensive player. I feel like that's a get. Zion Young coming in from Michigan State. I like that get too. Defensive lineman Chris McClellan from Florida. I know we touched on this in the Florida preview. Go listen to that. Nice get for Mizzou. Linebacker Brady Holtman from Wyoming. I know we got to see Wyoming last year. Wyoming keeps a good defense. We got to see Wyoming in person. You got to get out to Laramie, folks. Linebacker Jeremiah Beasley comes in from the national champion Michigan Wolverines. That's another one that I think you're excited about. Linebacker Khalil Jacobs coming in from the Sun Belt in South Alabama. Linebacker Corey Flagg from the Miami Hurricanes, and then defensive back Toriano Pride from Clemson. I mean, which ones stand out to you here? Is there one that just jumps out to you?
For me, it's the guy from Georgia, Darius Smith. I mean, he's apparently going to take over the role of Darius Robinson, who was the first round draft pick. Him and Toriano Pride coming over from Clemson. But there's probably 3 or 4 guys at least who very, very craftily handpicked to start in this lineup. And then the other guys can compete for a job with reserves from last year who were high recruits. So there's still a lot of talent defensively. And I think Missouri, I'm just impressed with how they used the portal. They pinpointed needs, they targeted certain players, and they got them.
And to me, they only bring back 5 starters. Defensive end Johnny Walker, great name, 5 sacks. Yeah. You prefer Johnny Walker red, blue, black, green?
I mean, I think blue is the highest one I've had. Is that what's green? Is green even higher than that?
I think it might be. I think green might be higher than that. I think it goes, or it's blue and green are the expensive ones.
Yes, exactly.
So red or black? Where Johnny Walker? Where are you going? Red?
So black's the cheaper one, right?
I don't know. I think it's close.
I can't tell tell much of a difference between red or black. So usually I would just get the cheaper one if I'm buying Johnny Walker.
Well, I think you can tell a difference between Johnny Walker, in the defensive end for Missouri, and some of the other defensive ends out there in the Southeastern Football Conference. Let's go. He's back. 5 sacks a season ago. Defensive tackle Christian Williams, 25 tackles. He's back. Linebacker Chuck Hicks, 53 tackles on the season last year. This guy's in his 7th year of college football.
Love it.
What a day and age to be a college football player.
Where's your clip? Where's your Farley clip?
Yeah, that's true. Let me load that up right. 7 years of college football. It's just,
a lot of people go to college for 7 years.
You gotta love an experienced linebacker that's been playing for his whole life in college football. So safety Dalen Carnell and safety Joseph Charleston are back. You gotta like that. I know some of the, I think it's Carnell that is a preseason all SEC first team. So they're excited about him. Only 5 starters back though is still, like I said earlier, it's something you circle. I think that's the concern if you're looking for the concern of this team and maybe the kicking game. But
the defense definitely has something to prove. And the good thing, I mean, their schedule is light throughout, which we'll get into here shortly, but it's especially light in September. So that's going to give all these new faces some time to get on the same page, which should be beneficial.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because now we're sitting here. If you're not in front of the YouTube or watching us somewhere, if you're just listening to us, the win total sitting at 9.5 wins. I mean, shit, I can't remember. Maybe Gary Pinkel one year, maybe, but I still think that was 8.5. I know Gary Pinkel got Missouri to a couple SEC championship games, but I don't know that it was 9.5. The win total coming into those years, I kind of think it wasn't.
If I'm not mistaken, last year was it 6.5, and we both were on the over.
Yeah.
So for 1 year to jump up 3 games or 3 wins. That's a lot.
Especially considering there's no more SEC East. So adding that to the mix, so they're plus 1,500 to win the SEC. To make the 12-team playoff, yes, at plus 125. So if you're buying in, NC Nick might be buying in. No, at minus 225. So Vegas thinks they're going to be a 9-3, 8-4 team, I think, and just on the outside of the playoffs. To win the national championship, plus 3,500. Look, if you're a Missouri grad, and you love your Tigers, why not?
A little
how many
for sure.
Because there's a good chance you could be hosting a playoff game. You win that, get momentum. I wonder if the teams that are getting the bye week will get penalized by this. You look at the NFL, that happens all the time. The teams that get the bye week, because a team makes the wild card, gets hot. You've seen it, a lot of times in the NFL.
Sure. Yeah.
Where the team that gets the bye week ends up losing a little bit of momentum. Now the 9.5 is juiced towards the under. It's minus 145 to the under, plus 125 to the over. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's right where it should be. I mean, this team won 10 regular season games last year, and they're returning a good chunk of last year's squad. It is funny how it jumped from 6.5 to 9.5 in 1 year, but there's reason for it. So, look, I'm high on Missouri. If you follow me on Twitter, then you probably know that. So I think they can do that. I think they can go over. Put it this way, I'm not going to lay that much juice to pick an under on Missouri, but I think it's a fair line. I think I kind of think Vegas got it right. It's where it should be.
Yeah. Kaysen in the chat saying take the over win total to make the playoffs, right? At the same price. Yeah, that is funny, because if you just take it to make the 12-team playoff, you might as well just take that instead of the 9.5 wins. Because if you go 9-3, you might as well just take them to make the playoff. But I mean, I guess technically a 9-3 team could also not get in the playoffs.
You're right though, because I think that gives you a chance that a 9-3 team does.
Yeah.
Which I mean, maybe that might not be Missouri, but that still gives you another window to cash that bet.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that's definitely an interesting thing to bring up here. Folks, look, I want to tell you that you're listening to the College Football Experience, and look, we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live for the NBA Finals. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex entries, so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win with your entry, essentially. So with more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever, and the best part is you can win up to 325 times the amount that you originally enter. You can also use specials and boost on all flexed entries. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. And like I said, college football, they got that coming around. They also have UFL. If you're a St. Louis Battlehawks fan, check that out. Underdog Fantasy. Hop on over there, sign up. And when you do sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. All right, we will go game by game on the schedule here. The schedule right there. And look, if you're wondering what my number are or what my numbers are on the right, I have ranked the hardest games from 1 to 12. So obviously they open with Murray State on Thursday, August 29th. That's the easiest game of the season. Although the Racers throwing money into their program. Let's go Racers. Bud Foster and Frank Beamer's alma mater. But no, that's going to be an ass kicking. How about the beginning of this fucking schedule? I mean,
they don't leave their home state until October. First off,
I mean, I'm talking like first 8 games, but let's talk about it. So, like I said, week 1 they're home to Murray State. Week 2 they're home to Buffalo, who happens to be breaking in a new head coach. And this is what I can't help but notice this, NC Nick.
The head coach thing for sure.
They have 3 new head coaches in their first 5 games. 3 new head coaches, and I believe Murray State's actually I think it's 4. I think Murray State's breaking in a brand new head coach. So that you gotta love that. When anytime the gods give you that,
I think half their schedule also when you include Alabama and Mississippi State.
True, and I think there's a great chance. They end the season with Arkansas. I think there's a great chance Sam Pittman's not coaching.
Certainly possible.
So look, so week 1 Murray State, That's an obviously win. I'm not even going to ask you. Week 2, home to Buffalo. Any chance for the Bulls?
I mean, some people might say Middle Tennessee State almost beat them last year, but no, I don't expect Buffalo to be very good.
Week 3, they get Bill O'Brien, brand new head coach at Boston College. Gotta love the fact now BC beat him in Chestnut Hill
2 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago. But Jeff Hafley's gone to the Green Bay Packers. Bill O'Brien's in there. I don't know about the hire there, and I don't know by week 3 will he have
in Columbia. Get out of here. Boston College ain't winning that.
Yeah,
no way.
So we both got him 3-0, and then Diego Pissing Pavia, who transferred from New Mexico State. He says SEC, no problem. He's 1-0 against the SEC, right? Last year I think he was 1-0 against the SEC. As he won in Auburn, War Eagle. They are taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores. I'm going to say this, man, because Vanderbilt hired New Mexico State's offense coordinator, and they brought in Diego Pavia and like 5 of their transfers, and also Jerry Kill ended up coming on a part of that staff eventually. I think they're going to be a little chippier, but I got to take Missouri here. If it was in Nashville,
right? Yeah. I mean, 2 years ago, I think it was just a 3-point game. Last year it was 38-21 in Nashville. So come on. I mean, I think if Vanderbilt is in this game, if Vanderbilt wins this game, then something went drastically wrong. And then I mean, it's bottom line, you can't lose this game if you're Drinkwitz. It shouldn't be close. 4-0. Come on.
4-0. Then they get a bye week and they're taking on new head coach Mike Elko at Texas A&M. I circled this as the most important game of their entire season. I know that I didn't rank that. I ranked Alabama as their hardest opponent, which they'll play in a little bit. But to me, this is the one where like I think I like Texas A&M's schedule. I like Missouri's schedule. I think if you're fans of both those teams, you should be very optimistic about your chances to make the playoffs. I think this is, to me, the winner of this is probably going to be the team that ends up going 9-3 that makes a playoff. Now, I think A&M's schedule is a little bit harder than Missouri, so maybe it is. Maybe Mizzou can still walk that line, but I'm going to say A&M wins this game though. I have A&M as a short favorite here. How about you?
I mean, it's tough. We kind of talked about this Wednesday night in our weekly podcast that Missouri's 2 really tough road games at A&M, at Alabama. And I said, if Missouri can win one of those, split them, then Missouri's in the playoffs. Because that means they could even afford another loss to somebody else on their schedule, and they would still be totally fine at 10-2. I'll say this is the one that Missouri wins.
I can't help but laugh at this next one. Back-to-back away as they go up to Amherst, Massachusetts, to the McGurk to take on Don Brown and the Minutemen. Please.
I'm not sure why they're doing this at Massachusetts. I mean, the only other SEC team that would do this would probably be Vandy or maybe Arkansas or something. So I'm surprised, but
you have a moment. And what is Missouri doing here? They're playing Buffalo, Boston College, and UMass. Just diving into the Northeast,
right?
I'm confused, I'm confused. I love the fact at least somebody in the SEC is going to play on the road at a mid-major, which happens once every 35 years. Last time Alabama did that, they lost at Hawaii. I mean, could this be a dangerous game?
No, I don't think so. No chance in hell. 52-0.
My problem is it's still October 12th. If this was November 12th, I'm like, hey, maybe it'd be cold as shit, and that passing attack would be put on ice a little bit. And
maybe if they had a big win at A&M, they're totally overlooking this game. But come on, UMass is one of the worst teams in FBS football.
I do think they're getting better. Look, and I believe Mississippi State under Dan Mullen played up there, and I think it was a very close game in the fourth quarter. And they pulled away late, but the reason why I bring this up is me and Patty C were just talking about this last week before we went live. Look, maybe I'm spending too much time on this game. UMass was 3-9 a year ago, but they did beat New Mexico State, who took down a SEC team. All right. And Don Brown, this is year 3 of them. You look at some of those games from a year ago. 2-point loss to Eastern Michigan, 13-point loss to Miami, Ohio, 3-point loss in overtime to New Mexico. 14-point loss to a bowl team in Arkansas State. Played Toledo decently. Beat Army. Played Liberty. The Flaming Libs.
So maybe you take the 35 points and you have them covered.
If they beat A&M though, it is a sleepy spot. I'll just say that. We saw Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee only won 4 games last year.
Yeah.
Middle Tennessee almost beat Missouri. So, hey, no, but this is a win. Okay, so I got them moving to 5-1. You got them 6-0.
Yeah.
And now Hugh Strip Club Freeze comes in to Columbia, Missouri, and I actually think this is another kind of a mystery game, but I favor Missouri here. Auburn. I was surprised Auburn didn't go out in the portal and bring in a different quarterback, Peyton Thorne. They're going to roll the dice with him. Look, part of me thinks Peyton Thorne's decent, but not in Hugh Strip Club Freeze's offense. He would never seem comfortable. He ran for over 500 yards last year, the quarterback spot. Previously, he ran for 25 at Michigan State. So he had some good years at Michigan State, though. So I don't know. Auburn's kind of a mystery team to me in the SEC this year. They were 6-7 last year in his first year, but it is a look ahead game though.
For sure. And I mean, we saw, Missouri right now, Missouri's program is definitely light years ahead of Auburn's, but we saw them last year play down in competition. There's a couple tricky home games on this Missouri schedule because it's either look ahead or it's coming off of a big win, perhaps. So I wouldn't be surprised if Missouri drops one game that we're not seeing, but I still have them beating Auburn here, and I have them at 7-0.
I got them beating Auburn too, and I got them at 6-1, and now they head to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They're 1-1 against Bama in the state of Alabama. They won one in Birmingham once, but. I mean, this is a winnable game. Alabama's got a lot of question marks. I mean, for Alabama, they have a lot of question marks, but I guess I'll favor Bama here, but not by much.
Yeah, I certainly don't have them winning at A&M and at Bama. It's possible, but I'll say they drop this one, take their first L of the year, which is okay. I mean, it's not where you don't need to win, go 11-1 or 12-0 anymore. So yeah, I have them dropping this one to Bama.
Then they get their second bye week, and then they're home to Oklahoma on November 9th. I'm glad to see this rivalry back. This one dates back to 1902. This is they have a trophy for the Tiger Sooner Peace Pipe. So let's smoke that thing after this game. And Oklahoma has dominated this series historically, but they haven't played since 2011, obviously. But Mizzou did get him in 2010 in Columbia. Last time they played in Columbia, Gary Pinkel got him 36-27. So maybe this is a dangerous game to me, and this is really the last real dangerous game to me.
I think it's especially dangerous if they do beat Bama the week before. So the Auburn game was a look ahead to Alabama. The Oklahoma game is coming off the Alabama game. Depending on how their season shakes out, I think this game is tricky. I think the Auburn and the Oklahoma wins home games are tricky. But I personally, I just said I have them losing to Alabama, so I think they come back home, refocus, and they beat the Sooners.
I have this as a 50-50 game, and I'll talk about this in a second, because next they go to South Carolina on November 16th. They're at South Carolina. See, what's great about the schedule, they did them some fucking favors. Whether it's going to taking on those Northeast teams, whether it's the fact that they get everyone in the SEC wants Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and South Carolina on their schedule, and they got them all.
They got 3 of the 4.
No, they got all 4.
You're right. They got them all.
They got all 4.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, even crazier is the fact that Shane Beamer could be fired by then.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting South Carolina and Arkansas at a point where they could have interim head coaches. Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby's year one. I'm going to say this between Oklahoma the schedule goes like this: November 9th, home to Oklahoma, November 16th at South Carolina, November 23rd at Mississippi State, and November 30th home to Arkansas. I do think there's one loss in there to me.
I agree.
And I'm going to put them at 9-3.
I have them at 10-2. And I
Okay.
think if you're 10-2, I think not only are you cashing the over, I think a 10-2 SEC team is making the playoffs.
Let's talk about it in a second here, but first I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by the great people of Rhythm. All right, if you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easier to go through and find the best props to put your money on in a matter of seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team full of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning their algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident. I mean, who doesn't love looking at a graph? From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player prop lines, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll through some sports book. Claim your free 7-day trial today. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. Yeah. All right. We're back on the college football experience. So we said before the win total is 9.5. You're on the over. I'm on the under. And my logic is this: you went 4-0 in close games. I do think this is the best schedule that any team has in the SEC. But I think Mike Elko at A&M is gonna have that thing going. He was just 2 years removed from being at A&M. I think he's familiar with his personnel more than your traditional first year coach. And then I do think the Hugh Strip Club freeze game against Auburn could be tricky. It's a look ahead spot with Alabama on deck. And I think Oklahoma is certainly tricky. And then I think these could be tricky. Like if Shane Beamer's still at South Carolina, he's closed the season really strong in his time there. His problem is the beginning of the season. He's really struggled these years in Columbia. But Lebby, by the time you're taking on Lebby at Mississippi State, November 23rd, Starkville, Starkville's crazy. And by that point, you're pretty much done with year one. You know what I mean? You're almost on year two. And then Arkansas, they should beat Arkansas, but could Bobby Petrino be the interim head coach? All right. Could that offense be flying around? I just think there's 3 losses. I think there's 3 losses somewhere, but I'll be honest, it wouldn't shock me with this schedule, the way it aligns. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they're 11-1.
I mean, we've talked about this with, the unbalanced scheduling now with all these supersized mega conferences. And one thing you have to do is you have to look at a good team who has the right path. That's Missouri. And Missouri proved last year they're a good team, and they have one of the easiest schedules. I mean, probably one of the easiest schedules in P4.
Well, especially when you consider like their non-con is a fucking joke. Yeah. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and UMass might be the easiest non-con out of any Power 5.
I mean, everything about the schedule, the bye weeks are lined up perfectly. You have, 4-4-4. You get, your first bye week is right before your first tough game. Your second bye week is right after the Alabama game. Everything about the schedule, all the first year head coaches, everything is nice. There's not one bad
coaches that could be fired on the back end.
Yeah.
So 2 of your final 4 games, you could be. I mean, shit. You could even make a case if Venables has a terrible year. I think they'll keep Venables for another year. But I'm saying Beamer and Pittman are certainly. I think it's a gamble that they'll even be coaching in those games.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It's got to be fascinating to watch. I'm gonna take the under just because I believe. Look, they had that kicker making 65-yard game-winning field goals. I just think there's enough. You went 4-0 in close games. I just expect, and you lose a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball. I just think someone's going to come up and get you. Someone that we're not seeing is going to come up and get you. And then to me, A&M and Bama, I make them short favorites. But someone else is going to come up and get you, I think.
I mean, they're only going to be dogs in probably 2 games this year, right?
I don't even know if there'll be a dog against A&M. It depends how fast Elko gets it going. The Bama game, 100%. I think there'll be a dog, but
it probably won't be it'll be less than a touchdown, probably a 3 or 4 point dog or something. So
yeah, you're right. And then I would, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Give me the over.
So could they be hosting? So I mean, look, it's not that crazy to take the plus 1,500. If with that schedule, they should be in the SEC championship game. Because Georgia plays at Texas, right?
Yeah.
You also have Texas plays the Red River Shootout. Those games are always fucking insane. You have no idea who's going to win that game, right? Doesn't matter that the better team doesn't always win that game. See last year, right? And then you, like I said, Georgia travels to Texas. So to me, if Texas loses that game, and then you have the Red River Shootout, Texas also has to play at Texas A&M. It's not going to be, this is what's stupid about these new conferences and their conference championship. Like you just said, your top 2 teams are not going to be playing most years in the conference championship. You saw it last season. Louisville was not the second best team in the ACC. I'm sorry. I like Louisville. I like Jeff Brown. They were not. Oklahoma State was not the second best team in the Big 12. I would argue that with anybody, but they got in the championship game because of the path. It's worth sprinkling the plus 1,500 because I can tell you this, they play Georgia tough. Now the game would be in Atlanta, which would not be fun. Georgia's got
they played them kind of tough in Athens last year, but I mean, there's definitely, there's 2 different things: getting to the championship game and then winning it. I see your point as to why that's pretty juicy if you think they can get there, because then you just have to win one more game. But that one more game is probably going to be against Georgia or Texas. So I think I'm going to hold off on that. I'm high on Missouri, but I'm not quite that high.
I'll tell you this: they could beat Texas. Texas had a horrible pass defense a year ago. Texas lost their defense coordinator, head coach of Nevada now.
Yeah,
like to me, if they need to be the biggest Texas fans in that Georgia game, right? And maybe they could end up playing the Longhorns, or who knows? The SEC now, with you adding all these teams, A&M I think has a nice path. Ole Miss has a nice path. Alabama's Alabama. Oklahoma's Oklahoma. So you don't know how the fuck it's going to shake out, but I can tell you this: I think you should be in the SEC championship game with that schedule. Even though I have you going 9-3. That would
your problem there is that it would be 3 conference losses, right?
Yes,
you don't have so I don't think they would make the
I don't think so either with 9-3. But I'm just saying you ain't gonna get an easier schedule to get to the SEC championship than what they currently have. I'm taking the under. Vegas agrees with me slightly. Vegas, like I said, they have the juice is to Missouri being 9-3.
Fuck
NC
you.
Nick says 10-2.
Vegas. Go with you.
I'll say this though, man, that A&M game's everything to me, because let me just look one more time. If they beat A&M here on October 5th, I think the momentum of the season will get them. So if they beat Texas A&M, they'll be 5-0. The UMass next 6-0, Auburn next 7-0. I truly believe they could have a special season, whether they beat Alabama or not.
Yeah.
Because to me, even if they lost the Bama game, the fact I think that they would be there with 1 loss, I do think they would win out at that point, because I think the pressure and the excitement around Columbia, Missouri, I do think they would win out. To me though, I got them losing to A&M, which means, it's a little bit different of a feel for October when you lose to A&M and you lose to Alabama. But by far to me, that October 5th is the most important game. I think a lot of people think the Alabama game. I think it's the October 5th game that is the most important game on the season. What do you think?
You make a lot of sense there, and I looked at it, at those 2 games as a group, the A&M and Alabama. Win one of those, you're golden. Win 2, lose both of them, and then you can still go 10-2 with losing those 2 games. That's the great thing about the schedule. But I do think that they probably lose a game somewhere to someone else along the line. So split those games. I think you're good.
It's going to be fascinating to watch, folks. Make sure you subscribe to the College Football Experience because we are breaking down every single team in the land. I think we got the Kentucky Wildcats scheduled for the next episode, and then the LSU Tigers going on after that. But yeah, buckle up. We're going through it all 134 teams, 134 podcasts, 134 basically an hour dedicated to 134 teams. So we get the same amount of attention to Kennesaw State, who's new to the FBS, or Utah State or whoever, Hawaii, that we do Missouri or Alabama. So subscribe, tell a friend. We've been doing this shit for years, and we're excited to this is, I think, the most exciting time in college football history in my life. Probably. You have a 12-team playoff. Now, as much as I hate the realignment stuff, which I truly hate the realignment stuff, I do think college football hasn't. It's been like 15 years since it's been this open, where the SEC. You're talking about Missouri potentially winning the SEC, right? I just rattled off 8 teams. We have no idea. We think it's Georgia, but the fact Georgia's got to play at Texas through a tiebreaker when you have these gigantic fucking conferences, Georgia could then somehow miss the SEC championship. So it's going to be chaotic. I think there's only one conference that I feel like everything's open. There's only one conference where you really feel like you kind of know what's going to happen. And I think that's the Big Ten, but even that has a few question marks, but we're going to talk all about it. Check out all of we've already done week by week previews. We've already done toughest schedules. Check it all out. And as obviously we go team by team this time of year. So thanks for tuning in, and please, if you can, hop on over to iTunes, Spotify, hit that subscribe button, youtube.com/the college experience. Hit that like, subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. And like I said, if you can give us a 5-star review on iTunes, that'd be fantastic as well. Until next time, folks, make sure you give NC Nick a follow on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at the Colby D. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. We got you covered. Until next time, this is the College Football Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot.